We got this tweet from the Vigilant Fox. Jordan Peterson just dropped a chilling warning. Psychopaths are taking over the right. Let me play this clip for you from the Joe Rogan Experience, where Jordan Peterson warns Pharisees, psychopaths. He's talking about Candace Owens, but listen to what he says.
I think that virtualization has enabled the psychopaths.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well,
without a doubt.
That's a terrible thing because the psychopathic types, they're always the death of everything. Like I'm seeing this come up on the right now. So imagine this. I've been working on a new theory of political psychopathology, and I like it quite a lot.
Is this where the term the woke right comes in?
Yeah, well, Lindsay is pointing at that, but he hasn't got the diagnosis exactly right. So it isn't woke. That's not the issue. It's not exactly.
I think
he's one
what
level.
they're talking about is like similar types of behavior.
He is talking about that. Yeah, no.
But
what he's pointing.
Woke just lets you clarify in your head. Oh, it's like that.
Yeah, but the problem is
it's like Antifa.
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is that argument is predicated on the claim that the ideas are the problem, like the woke ideas, for example, on the right or the left. But that's not the problem. The problem is that 4 to 5% of the population, something like that, is cluster B, that's the DSM-5 terms, histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, psychopathic, or they have dark tetrad traits, they're Machiavellian, they're sadistic. That's about 4%. Okay, so the question is, how do these people maneuver? And the answer is they go to where the power is, and they adopt those ideas, and they put themselves even on the forefront of that.
Right.
But the ideas are completely irrelevant.
Right.
All they're doing is they're the Pharisees. They're the modern version of the Pharisees. They're the people who use God's name in vain, right? As they proclaim moral virtue.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whether it's right or left or Christian or Jewish or Islam. They invade the idea space, and then they use those ideas as false weapons to advance their narcissistic advantage.
Yes.
And so then you have the problem, and the right's going to face this more and more particularly, because the left had to face it when they were in powers.
Yes.
How do you identify the psychopathic parasites, 4% of the population, who are clothed in your clothing and waving your flags, but who are only in it for narcissistic benefit?
So the interesting thing is what he's describing has been described by many people going back like 10 years ago when we had conversations about the corporate press, that activists masquerading as journalists was the phrase that I used a long time ago. These are people who are politically motivated, and they are using the institutions of journalism to advance their political goals, exactly as Jordan Peterson describes. However, the issue I take with what he's doing is he's really just beefing with Candace Owens. Here's a tweet from a month ago where he said, Candace Owens is a true pharisaical pretender. She vociferously proclaims her devotion to Christ for no other reason than to elevate her perceived status. Her outrage is designed not to shout the truth from the rooftops, build bridges or make peace, but to subvert Christianity itself with its new force to her own purpose. She is literally using God's name in vain. There are few more unforgivable sins.
Yeah, and I think what he's saying is if Candace were to make a post, and I was going to go through her stuff and look for a moment that maybe she did this, a post that's very full of vitriol, anger at someone, and then finish that text off with, and by the way, Christ is king. It's like, that's using the Lord's name in vain. Don't do evil and then exclaim God.
She doesn't do that.
That's why I wanted to go through
We had this conversation a while ago because Jordan Peterson, along with some other experts, dropped this report where they were like, look at the people who use Christ as king as a troll or whatever. And they included Jack Posobiec, but I don't think they accused Jack Posobiec of doing this. They said he was using it intentionally. But they accused Candace Owens of doing it. And I'm like, look, if you want to argue that she is like a cutthroat business person who's just trying to build a business, fine. But she's not doing that. I would argue that if he's referring to her as a powerful psychopath who is able to amass this massive platform and steal power or whatever, he's effectively arguing at the same time she's not stupid enough to fall into dumb traps like trolling people by saying Christ is king. I genuinely think she just believes it, and she tweets it on her posts. The issue I see here is that Jordan Peterson is veiling his anger with Candace Owens in some, we have to be mad at all the psychopaths on Joe Rogan to create this new narrative. And it's a part of, he appeared on Fox News saying something similar, where they've got this report that I've heard, I think Jack Posobiec was tweeting this, I should pull it up, that they're working with the Anti-Defamation League. And I tweeted, who are you talking about? Because if Jordan Peterson really is just mad at Candace Owens and believes she's a Pharisee, then I take issue with him going on Joe Rogan and saying, watch out for all these psychopaths who do these things. And I'm like, bro, you're literally just describing your tweet to Candace Owens.
I think it's important to realize that every human has psychopathic tendency and potential to act without the concern of others, to do what you do may have collateral damage, harm others, and it just doesn't matter because you got to get it done. That's like wartime mentality. You can switch into a psychopathic mentality. It's okay. It doesn't make you an evil person. Sometimes people extol psychopathic behaviors and they're not evil. They just do it, and it's like I need to know when I'm doing it personally, so I keep myself in check. And I think he's coming on being like, look, you guys have all the power right now, and do not let obsession with fame force you into something, start talking about something you're not interested in, and then all of a sudden now this is your big agenda, and now you're popular. Like you said, it's not about the what, it's about how people hijack the narrative for their own, what he said, narcissistic, which is where it's really about, me, and how can I get society to serve me? That behavior, we all got to keep ourselves in check.
I don't have a great analysis of actually what Peterson's getting at, but I don't get the sense that it's just about Candace Owens. I think that he's speaking more broadly about the people that tend to be critical of Israel and stuff. But again, I don't have some kind of overarching theory as to what he's getting at. I just think that he's been fairly good at articulating his position and being forthright about what he's saying. So I don't get the sense that he's kind of hiding behind just saying, talking about psychopaths meaning one specific person. I think he's probably thinking more broadly.
He did bring up the Israel stuff. Anti-Semitism he brought up is like one of the modern like topics that are being latched onto by people that might be exhibiting psychopathic behaviors, and then they're running with that narrative, making a lot of money, building their own echo chamber. But that kind of led me astray in that I don't think he gets the Israel thing. If he thinks that people complaining about, Israel's military tactics, they didn't get too deep into what anti-Semitism even meant in that context, but he did bring that up. We should have him on. He said he wanted to come do the show.
Cernovich took a quote from Aaron McIntyre, and it's a great point. He says, Peterson is correct that as the right gains momentum, the truly power-obsessed narcissists will move there. I wonder if there's a group of high-status liberals who have made that journey recently and are now trying to take that power. Quote from Aaron McIntyre.
Got names of people that can't come to mind, but I don't know, Gavin.
Well, I think that he's talking about the IDW people.
Indeed he is.
I was thinking of Chris Cuomo.
Of course.
No. Well,
yeah, right. Indirectly, yes,
well,
absolutely.
okay, so that Chris Cuomo is Chris Cuomo fits the description, but I think that they were specifically thinking of the actual IDW people.
The question is largely, when did an individual shift their political views? So you have that woman, I forgot her name. Was it Lindy Lee or something? Is that the woman? Where she was like a Democrat fundraiser, and then after Trump lost, she immediately was like, I'm not a Democrat anymore. And now she got roasted by Wade Stotts on the Will Cain show, which was absolutely hilarious. But she's like a lifelong Democrat, and then said she voted for Kamala, and then afterwards. The criticism is there were people who were diehard, ride or die Democrat, liberals. Or how about this? He's probably referring to Eric Weinstein, who refused to endorse Trump, saying, oh, woe is me, I can't do it. Trump is so bad. And then there were people who very early on were, there were two spaces, of which obviously I fall into one of them, which is the stop making me defend Trump. This was the period where it was like, I'm not a big fan of his policies, but you're lying about him. Stop lying about the guy. And then I was backing Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang. And when they lost, I said, then I'm voting for Trump. But there are some people that only after Trump won in November did they actually switch and say they were for Trump. But more importantly, there are a prominent group of liberal personalities who pretend like they are anti-establishment or heterodox, but refuse to endorse Trump or call out the Democratic Party for their ridiculous ideologies like sex-changing kids or all of that stuff. Jordan Peterson is being effectively criticized in that regard for essentially being part of that group.
That you're saying that in addition to what he's talking about, he's also being criticized for
Aaron McIntyre's post.
Oh, okay.
When he says, I wonder if there's a group of high-status liberals who have made that journey. What he's pointing out is that Peterson is saying on the Joe Rogan podcast, as the right becomes ascendant, psychopaths will seek to move into the right to gain political power. Probably why Bill Maher all of a sudden was like, Trump's not that bad. I mean, he's not perfect, but maybe I was wrong. And Charlemagne the God said the same thing. Maybe Trump's not a fascist. It's like, we realized that we were on the wrong side of history. Better flip-flop.
maybe, but a lot of people too are just realizing the problem was the deep state, takeover of the U.S. and they're like, actually, I'm with Trump now.
And you think just on November 6th they just had the epiphany?
That would be a weird day to have it.
Indeed. So what I think is most of these people were like, I'm going to wait and see who wins and then back the winner.
Yeah.
And there were other people who came out and said, I'll stick my neck out and support what I think is right.
Those people that are like that jump ship, that's a little different. I think that might be a psychopathic behavior trait. I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Hence the point that Aaron McIntyre is flipping onto Peterson, what Peterson is saying about Candace Owens. Now, we can discuss Candace Owens' past. She was like a liberal a long time ago. But then she...
Red Pill Black. That was her...
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I guess she had been accused of like doxing conservatives or something. But then she had a moment where she flipped, she explained it, and she's been steadfastly on the right for 8 years or something or longer. She's at a prominent show, and she largely says what she says. And I got to be honest, she gets roasted for a lot of the opinions she has, which are anything but standard. I'll call it that.
Yeah.
She's got
Macron.
for real. Well, I know that's funny, but she's got opinions that are not like typical mainstream safe opinions to have. She just does her thing. And criticize her, totally fine. You're allowed to do that. Jordan Peterson is basically pointing to himself in this regard. Now, I like Jordan. I think he's an all right dude. But I think it is fair to point out that a lot of these IDW guys would not get behind Trump with full support, argued against him, and are trying to pretend like they're on our side.
I mean, look, I'm not so sure that this revolt hasn't much to do with Trump. I think that they probably have an idea of, what is acceptable politics, and they think that Trump kind of falls outside of it. They have their problems with the left or with Democrats, and so they don't feel comfortable, aligning with Trump because they say that they feel like Trump is unacceptable. I think that's probably an uncontroversial opinion to have. Not about Trump. I'm talking about the analysis. But I don't know. I don't know if it's something that is, particularly broad, or if it's just a very narrow handful of people that it kind of doesn't really matter.
I felt that personally. I felt that. I talked about it on the show last year that it was like, man, if I just start talking about that I'm going to vote for Trump, it's going to piss a bunch of people off from my past. And then I had to just get over it. I had to get over it. You got to be, you got to care about the community first and not my personal.
That's really the concern that I've seen from a lot of conservatives. The question is, were you willing to stick your neck out even a little bit to get behind what is right? And there were a lot of people that would not do it. They'd privately be like, these celebrities, dude. They go, hey, I'm actually going to vote for Trump. Just I can't tell anybody. And I'd be like, bro, screw you. Don't tell me that. Mm-hmm. Like I disrespect. I have less respect for you for doing that.
Yeah.
You like musicians and actors and athletes have messaged me in private being like, hey man, I love what you do. It's super cool. I'm definitely voting for Trump, but I just can't say anything because I don't want to lose my job. And I'm like, so I should risk everything for you?
Right.
Because you and I agree this is the right thing to do, but you won't take any risks, then you deserve nothing.
Yeah. I had a lot of experience with that throughout COVID with musicians writing me. Thanks for speaking up. Yeah. I'm on your side of things. I just don't want to lose my gig. And then I'm like, it's like watching somebody get their ass kicked and you're like, hey man, thanks for taking the beating for me.
Them calling you on the phone and be like, thanks for inviting me over tonight, man. I had a great time. You're like, we're talking on the phone, dude. You're not even here.
Do you think that what we see with that adherence to what we were talking about earlier with the left, if you stray from their narrative, then you're out. Is that happening on the right? Because I think it is. I see it happening a lot.
I see it a little bit sometimes. Mm-hmm. The right has their heavy-handed moments, but it's rare relative to the left.
There's also concentric circles of beliefs within this sphere because that leftism thing is a very small bubble, and outside of it is just this greater cause of reality and people that think that Israel is the biggest problem in the world, and then people that think that climate change is the biggest, or whatever. I'm just naming random things. But then, if you disagree within those circles, you might be ejected from that immediate
we talked about
community.
this.
Because the right is a coalition of various factions, there's no real right to be ejected from. However, the left is homogenous. So if you were a liberal personality with a big following on YouTube, and you said something like, I really do think the trans movement is harming our ability to win politically, and we're sacrificing populist issues for this small faction of people, you're done. You are gone.
You're now conservative right.
No, not even. You're far right.
You better start your own podcast.
Far right. Yeah, sure.
And you'll lose everything. So they don't deviate. And that's why a lot of these liberals, they're in a hard position. Because my view of Luke Beasley, for instance, is that he knows the liberal issues he's wrong about. They're factually incorrect, but he can't say it because he would just lose followers. So it's like he's a young guy. He's got a big YouTube platform. When he looks into these things, he goes, oh, that's not true.
Oh, man, could you imagine that kind of stress to realize it and be like, oh, my God, I've got 1 million people that have been following this narrative and it's not real.
And if you say it's not real, they will all attack you, destroy your life. You'll be in the poorhouse overnight.
And even less is like they just stop watching. The thing is, he'd get a huge new audience, so it's not.
No, he wouldn't.
It wouldn't be right away, but he's really smart. I like that guy.
The right would likely say, why watch you? You've been wrong about everything. You just figured it out. Well, Dan Bongino knew it the whole time.
But
I'll watch him instead.
Because he's able to.
Granted,
about
I'm
that.
not using him as an example because he's gone.
I think that the right, though, looks for reformed leftists, and they really cheer that on. When you see somebody from Hollywood and they all of a sudden are saying something that, many of us may have been saying for a good while, the conservative movement tends to, or the right, whatever you want to call it, everybody outside of the left, they tend to absorb it.
Yeah, but I think it's because if someone comes from Hollywood and then starts saying, look, I've seen the light, I'm converting or whatever, you're hearing an expert from the inside explain to you all the bad things they're doing, effectively blowing the whistle. They're telling you, and it's similar for liberals, former conservatives, which are rare, but this is totally fake in my opinion. You have people, well, like Hunter Avalon is a good example. Like, oh no, I was so wrong. I can't believe I believed those things. And then they say, see, now you can tell us. And then they use that as an expert testimony of why I believed the things I did. The problem with the left is that they're just factually wrong about everything. So you're in trouble if you're a media personality on the left because you're like, you could literally Google search the story and go, whoa, he was from El Salvador? What is this document? He admitted he came illegally, and he admitted he was removable. He's not a Maryland man. Gonna lie anyway, otherwise I'll lose my followers.
Okay, this is a big leap, and we don't need to go into this, but on the right, I feel like that version of that, where they're like, I saw it on TV, therefore it's real, I'm going to regurgitate, is like, I read it in a 2,000-year-old document, I'm going to regurgitate it if it's real. Well, how can
What are you talking about?
The Bible, the Christian Bible. How can you verify the authenticity of that? I can't.
You can't.
No one can, because it's 2,000-year-old text. No one can. It's not like if CNN came on, it was
you're
like,
conflating
they
some
just
very
said something,
different
and I'm
things.
like, how can I verify it?
You're conflating some very different things because the fact is the right
verification.
isn't just Christian. And
Exactly.
there's
It's a
agnostics
small-
and anything. So when we're talking about the left and their adherence to an orthodoxy which is false, and then you bring up Christianity specifically, it just sounds like you're insulting Christians.
No. Anybody that believes faith without evidence is like, I think, is a problem.
But you see, you're entering. You're entering seventh grade.
Oh, you have blind faith. You have actual evidential faith. You have all sorts of different types of faith.
You are asking like
blind faith is a problem.
and you are asking like a 16-year-old's introduction to philosophy question about what is to know.
I'm sorry. What? No. What?
Yeah,
I brought my Bible.
When you were an adolescent
study Bible.
human being studying basic concepts of philosophy, one of the first things you ask or you are asked is, what is knowledge? How do you know what you know? And then you learn the famous quote, the only thing that I know is that I know nothing. So when you say to people, why do you just believe in the Bible? The same question is asked to you. What makes you think oxygen is real? You read it in a book and you just believe it. You're believing things without doing an investigation or checking the
I'll
evidence.
take the scientific method over a 2,000-year-old book.
When have you
and
done
I'll also take the scientific method over something CNN tells me.
When have you done it?
Done what?
When have you actually looked through an electron microscope to check to see if there's
I'd
oxygen?
love to do that.
You'd love to, but you haven't, right?
Ozone, dude. It's 3 O's.
Have you ever-
It's the only
Ian-
element with its own zone.
Ian, have you ever looked through an electron microscope at a one-dimensional?
I've never looked through an electron microscope.
So then how do you know graphene's real?
I trust the scientific method. That's my faith.
No, you don't.
My faith in evidence.
You've
it's
never done the
evidential
scientific
proof.
method for
You could
graphene.
say it's proof.
When have you proved it?
I haven't. The scientific community before me.
Who's that?
Richard Feynman. Who else? I mean,
So
lots
you
of
talk-
different-
you talk-
thousands and
he showed you?
thousands of people have claimed evidence of oxygen's existence.
And you've seen it.
I've listened to the evidence from people that have done the research for.
I've listened to
hundreds
the
of
evidence
years,
from people who said that Jesus walked on water.
The evidence from the people, they said they read it in a book that it happened. That's like saying the evidence from the people
No,
that heard a guy
I-
on CNN
that's
say
not what I
that
said.
it happened.
No, I met someone who said they had a vision. God told them it happened.
Okay, if a guy said he had a vision of something on CNN, I still wouldn't believe him.
You
need
are
evidence,
choosing to
man.
believe people who haven't shown you any evidence.
No, the opposite. I do not believe things without evidence.
When have you seen the evidence of graphene? Never.
All over the
You've
internet.
never seen it.
I mean, you want
You've never seen it.
I have. That's evidence of graphene when you look on papers and you read about it and you look at imagery of it online. And like that's all evidence.
What do you think the Bible's made of?
Paper.
Yeah, and what's in the Bible? There's words. That's
Bunch of
the
ink.
same kind of evidence that you're talking about, giving you evidence for graphene.
I'm talking about the scientific method.
You
did not
just
do it.
said-
No, I know. You don't need a scientist to believe in the scientific method. That's
And you don't need a Bible to believe in Jesus.
I require evidence, some evidence.
No, you don't.
Evidence based leading towards proof.
No, Ian, you don't.
In
You
order to
require
believe it. I
No,
cannot force myself to believe
Ian?
something I have no evidence for. It's impossible for me.
That's not true.
Or it's very, very, very difficult to snap that.
That's false. You know, I know. Because you've never done an experiment to prove the existence of graphene.
That's because there's scientists that do that work for us. You don't want every farmer to have to go look through an electron
Ian,
microscope.
there are priests who and bishops and cardinals who tell us about Jesus and
Yeah,
Christianity.
but they don't have electron microscopes.
Neither do you. And how do you know they do?
No, they don't.
They told me they had prophets.
Okay, fine. A guy told them.
And a guy
What do
told
want?
you.
Are you saying that this is actual evidence that you would do a journalistic endeavor with?
I'm saying, Ian,
Is that what you're saying?
you have never actually done any experiments. And what you believe is based on someone telling you, trust me, and you saying yes.
It's not random dude being like, "Hey, there's this thing, dude. Trust me."
Pope's
It's the
not a random dude
scientific
either.
community, and called the there's a
And the theologian
shitloads of
community.
scientific
Those
evidence.
are the same people
about
that,
these things.
those are the same people that said that the COVID shot was going to work, right?
I don't know.
Or that lockdowns
That's
work
what
or
I was
that
gonna
6 feet
ask
to,
Ian.
to slow the spread, or that double masking made sense.
That's not who I follow when
Ian,
I'm talking about graphene.
that's
You're talking about
the-
Anthony
okay,
Fauci.
Okay,
No,
let's
that's not who
just
did
pause
this.
real quick. I'm just going to say this because there's no reason to go in circles over and over again.
I didn't even want to bring it up to go too deep.
There's-
It's just that
no,
people
no,
that
no,
believe
no,
things
no, no.
without evidential proof is fucking annoying, man.
Like you.
And you have to
Like
play
you.
both sides
Like
of
you.
reality. You can't
Like
just
you.
pick and choose.
You are the
when.
perfect example of a person who believes whatever bullshit they heard from some guy
Totally
on the
untrue,
internet.
man.
You've
Why
never
do you think
s-
I'm sitting here?
You've never seen graphene. You've never tested it. You've never looked at an electron microscope. You don't even know it's a single
Tim,
lab.
I've seen graphene. You bought it for me.
How do you know it's graphene?
Well, it said graphene on there. You told me it was graphene.
It was
looks
dirt.
like graphene.
I filled up a vial outside and wrote
it's like
graphene on it.
sand. It looks like
it was
black
dirt.
sand.
I went outside, filled it up, and wrote graphene on
Are
it.
you lying?
I'm telling you the truth.
So are you going to double down on a lie?
That
Because if
bottle,
you're lying right now, you discredited yourself, man.
that bottle that I bought, that was just dirt.
Well, if you're telling a lie, you're discrediting
happening
yourself
right
in front of tens
Did you
of thousands
believe?
of
Did
people.
you believe it was graphene?
Yeah,
Why?
because you told me it was. It said
Well, I
graphene
lied.
oxide on the
I
side
lied.
or graphene on the
Some
side.
of
I
the
lied.
best content
I lied.
produces.
I mean, Tim,
And
if
you
you're,
just-
if
and you
you're
just
claiming to be
believed
a research journalist and you're going to lie and take things and believe things without evidence, I mean, you don't believe this shit. You told me
This
yourself you don't
shit-
Oh, my Bible shit. That's
Bro,
not nice.
It's
How
a concept.
offensive!
Got my name on it.
Good Lord, Ian, how dare
Like,
you?
dude, I'm
How
just
dare you?
evidence based, bro. I just
You are not. Of
course I am, dude.
Look, Ian. You lack the understanding of basic knowledge philosophy. I recommend you read these books. There is a famous quote. The only thing I know is that I know nothing. For you to sit here and say, I know what is true and factual proves you have no idea what you're talking about.
well, there are facts.
Like,
This is wood.
indeed, agreed.
How do you know?
Because I'm
Did you
here,
use an electron microscope?
because I built it.
How do you know it was actual wood, though? Did you test it with an electron microscope?
Because I watched them
No, you
cut
didn't.
it.
The answer is no. You
Yeah,
didn't. And
yeah.
you believe it's wood.
No, you're actually wrong.
It could be
because
plastic.
I watched
Could be
them cut
some
it.
new chemical they built.
I watched them cut it. I
How do you
worked
know
with them
it's
to put it together.
wood?
Because I saw it come from the tree, Ian. This is a
Now, that's a
special.
fucking lie.
No, it isn't.
You saw this table come from a tree,
They.
It's a custom built table.
This is a custom built table.
you were told? By who?
No, They built it
Anyway,
in front of
we're
me.
being- we're being
It's
hilariously
it's-
hyperbolic
It's
right now.
3 pieces. They brought it in. They had to lift it up over and bring it through because it wouldn't fit through the door. So it had to go through the. It had to go through the. Or I'm sorry, it had to go through before the windows were put in. It was brought in 3 pieces. There's a metal frame underneath it. We had these pieces sitting in a building for a year waiting for the construction. I watched them cut the wood into the pieces. I picked up the sawdust and we threw it in a fire pit
How do you know it was sawdust, Tim?
because it burned.
Graphene burns too.
Ian,
How do you know it wasn't almost
you've
sawdust?
never done any experiment.
That's not true. I've done
On what?
experiments.
On what?
Oh God, I don't know. Dripped water on a piece of paper to see how it curls.
Okay. So
What other stuff? I don't know.
What
I have
you-
fun
what-
with life, you know. I experiment lots.
what is limiting you in understanding reality right now is your arrogance.
No, I don't think so. I think I see a lot of dead people
Okay.
that are deadened in the mind that just accept things without evidence, and that's concerning to me, no
that's
matter
you.
where it's coming from.
And I see that in you.
Well, how? What's an example of that?
Okay. Are you breathing?
Not like a silly one. Not
me
a
ask-
silly example. I'm talking about like real
okay.
stuff.
What are you breathing right now?
Talking about real
Lots of
stuff.
gas.
Talking
dude.
about real.
What do you
Oxygen
breathe?
and oxygen and hydrogen, you name
How
it.
do you know?
I have faith in the scientific community and the evidence that I've seen.
What evidence have you seen?
Papers, I've had teachers tell me the evidence. We've gone through it in books. I've looked online about it. I read about the nitrogen content in the air. 78% of it, I think, is nitrogen, according to modern science. On
So
Earth.
you've actually taken air and you've
No,
broken.
but I didn't get the electron microscope for the table or for the air.
So you've never actually done an experiment to verify any of the things you were told.
Well, that's an extreme statement, but about
Have you ever-
the contents of the air? No, I haven't done that.
So why do you
experiment.
believe it's true?
Because there's a
Because-
preponderance of evidence.
Because someone told you it was?
Many, many, many people have. Yeah,
Okay, well, there's more people who believe in Jesus
I
than.
don't care how many.
Then why did you
Well,
just say
let's see,
that?
the quality and also the quality of the evidence
What's the evidence?
of what exactly of what's in the air.
Yeah, like what did you read that said oxygen was real? That proved it. That provided evidence.
The periodic table.
That's not evidence. That's a list.
It's a piece of evidence,
It's a list of things.
which is a piece of evidence.
How is it? How does that prove the existence of oxygen?
That, along with all sorts of other experiments where you can see the different colors of oxygen in with different lights. You can
How?
pull it. We can pull it up and go deep if you
No,
want to
no,
talk
no.
about. If you're
You've seen the
questioning
evidence.
science, like
Tell me the
let's
evidence.
look at it.
Tell me
But
the evidence. Tell me the evidence
I just
that
told you,
convinced you.
I'm the farmer that believes the scientist in regards to this. I'm not the guy that did the experiment. I have enough. There's enough people on Earth that do those experiments
Ian.
that we can have faith in science.
What will greatly help you expand your understanding of reality is to recognize you are simply choosing trust. That's it.
I think that's right. A lot of people, with belief, it comes with trust. You have to
So-
trust your sources.
When you do the fission experiments and the vacuum experiments and you actually isolate nitrogen from oxygen and carbon, or you pull carbon from the atmosphere, and you said, I actually built a machine and tested against the gases and was able to extract the carbon into a vial using vacuum technology, then I might say, you've done the work. For now, what you're telling me is I read a bunch of books and they told me it was true, so I believe it.
Chemical vapor deposition, where you deposit like carbon dioxide onto copper
Have you
in a
done it?
vacuum.
Have you done it?
No, but they do it at Rice University. I mean,
sure-
there's different
I'm
ways
sure
to get
they do.
graphene off of copper. You know,
Prophets commune with the Lord all the time.
well, that's probably true, but that doesn't mean that this is verifiable evidence.
I didn't say it was. I said you are choosing what to believe based on the books you read and telling other people that they're wrong.
I wouldn't say that they're wrong. I'm just concerned with people believing things without evidential proof.
That is like the epitome of my ethos. The corporate press not doing any research, deciding things are true without checking, or intentionally lying to people to spread misinformation. And the fascinating thing to me is that we were told that double masking worked. We were told that 6 feet distance was how you effectively stopped the spread of COVID. And then we learned just recently, actually not super recent, but a year or two ago, they made it up. It was totally made up. Now, how can that be? It was written in books. It was written in scientific papers. They published peer-reviewed journals.
They said it on the news.
Over and over and over again.
It was all bullshit, wasn't it?
Whoa! But they posted evidence.
And it was still bullshit.
But the evidence, Ian.
There wasn't enough.
But the papers, the evidence.
There wasn't enough evidence, man. I didn't believe it.
What do you mean?
I didn't believe 6 feet to slow this. Well, of a virus? Are you kidding me?
I'm
you
not
think
saying-
a paper mask is going to stop a
I'm
virus?
not saying you believed it. I'm saying the scientific community and the evidence they presented was wrong. Cigarettes used to be recommended by doctors. The science proved it. Science evolves all the time. And I actually believe in science I would give more credence to science simply because I've actually done experiments myself. Indeed. I actually created a remote control green tea can. I built it. And I used gyroscopic stabilization and vibration to reduce the surface friction to zero so that it could float across solid surfaces, and then use a gyroscopic stabilizer so that it could turn. And that video is actually on YouTube. You can watch it. So I actually tested these things and tried it out and said, wow, I was able to actually put together a radio transmitter that actually received it. And then the receiver received the signal, completing a circuit and causing a motor to spin. I've actually done those things. So I look at these things and I say, yes, based on the experience I've done, I believe it's likely to be true and correct. However, never actually seen oxygen, never seen an atom, been told they exist. In fact, the photo of the black hole they took, not really a photo of a black hole. It's an amalgam of various EMF waves that they compiled together and then said, here's what we think it might look like through a CGI. And then they told everyone this is what a black hole looks like. I don't follow the Bible, nor do I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I am not a Christian. I have no disdain for others who do. I simply just see things differently. But I would never be so arrogant to say, I know things other people don't, simply because some people are deaf, some people are blind. Some people can see things I can't see. Some people can hear things I can't hear. Women, some of them are tetrachromats. They can see more colors than I can. If a woman could see more colors than I could and asserted to me that there was a color on that skateboard, it's not just yellow, it's two colors, and I said, you're nuts, I can see it, it's yellow. She's actually right. She has a fourth rod end cone, and she can see colors I can't. But I'm just going to tell her she's wrong because I can't see it. The only thing that I know is that I know nothing. And that doesn't mean I literally don't know a thing. It means that for the most part, we are choosing who to trust, and then we are relying on that to build a foundation of what we hope to be true. Which is why when I talk about quantum physics, science, technology, and religion, I often say, if what we believe in science is true, then. However, for all we know, they're just lying, and computer screens are magic rocks they found in the earth, and they have no idea how they work. Considering that, you know, I've had friends who've actually built them, and I actually watched, after watching Dr. Stone, I watched a video of creating a fluorescent LED, what do they call it? In Dr. Stone, they take a beaker, and they put like phosphorus on it, and then they make a light that can go up and down and left and right to create a basic screen, and that's how they do a back projection screen. And then I watched a video on YouTube of how it was done, and I was like, oh, wow. You actually can see the building blocks of these things. We do got to go to Super Chats.
Let me be very clear. I'm not claiming that people that are Christian are wrong. I'm not making that claim. I just don't believe things, and I hope that other people don't without evidential proof. That's all. I don't think people are wrong, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I would ask,
what do you believe?
Well, a lot of stuff, but generally, like the existence of God, we could go on for an hour and a half about that.
Do you think that machine elves exist?
No, I don't know. No, not really. Not literally. Not that I know of.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.